I get a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll motion.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, and can I get a motion to approve the minutes from our May 11th, 2026 meeting?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, motion. All right, Philip, on to workshop regarding the budget for next year.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let me do it. All right. So I kind of grayed out some of the other items there, just so we could take a look at revenue and expense, which is kind of the main part of the budget. But going through, there are a couple of big items that I wanted to cover, just so y'all are aware. Something that I kind of wanted to make sure that we got a good feel on as well, one of the larger items. But here are all of our revenue sources here. Local government grants, contributions, application fees, concession revenue, interest revenue, private contribution, rents and royalties. This would be a new line item, property sales, because we do have a property that has been transferred to us from the town that we'll accept via resolution at our next meeting. And so if we sell that property this year, then that's going to be something that we want to consider. And then funds carried forward, which is essentially our account balance. So going through some local government unit grants, that would have been the FCDA grant. We're not going to be pursuing that this year. So I've left that number blank. The Town of Tyrone contribution annually is $30,000. That last payment has been made and is reflected here, and your funds carried forward. The next payment will try and get made a little sooner in the fiscal year, so I'll probably put that in July so that we have that money earlier rather than later. Vendor application fees, we will still have some events and some vendor application fees. I've reduced the potential, we had in there $2,000. I've reduced that down to $1,000. Part of what, in terms of projecting revenue, want to be a little bit conservative, because if for whatever reason we experience a massive influx of projected revenue, it's better to do a budget amendment that shows that we got more revenue than we anticipated than less. So, but I don't imagine that we'll have as much from a vendor application, revenue perspective as we did in previous years. Interest revenue or concession revenue, same. I have a small number in here, $100, just in case we decide we want to sell anything, if we have any swag that we want to sell, things like that. Interest revenue, if we invest approximately $35,000, which is a number that we had discussed at the last meeting, that's what we could conservatively expect in interest revenue over the course of the year, $800. That's a modest investment in Georgia Fund 1, assuming that they have, at least a 3.5% interest rate. I think it's probably a little better than that, but again, a conservative number. And that is dependent on $30,000 of investment. Quick note on that. I am preparing a resolution for our next meeting to approve us pursuing an application to Georgia Fund 1. So I'll have that ready at our next meeting. Private contributions and donations, I left blank. This is sponsorships, so we could put some money in there if we decided to for sponsorships. If y'all have any thoughts on that. I don't know what we would anticipate. Again, better to be conservative, but I don't know if this year we're going to be really pursuing that heavily, or if we are going to be focusing on the Clark property and what we do with that money and what we do with perhaps, other options or things like that.
Well, if the big success on the 12th happens and we get some of the town businesses that see, hey, well,
Yeah.
there's some turnout. I mean, there's an opportunity for us to generate sponsors there if Jason allows us to. don't know if that's a possibility, or do we split it, or is that part of his contract, or?
Right
'Cause I know he
now-
brings some, he has our headline sponsor, I think, right now, that he's advertising.
The way that he set it up is, whoever's doing their sponsorship program, they retain some of the funds. Carry out the cost of the event.
Yeah, so the contract that we agreed to for night market does have, first and foremost, actually, the town and Jason being compensated for their costs and Jason being able to retain his amount. Anything that's left over as a negotiation after that would come to the DDA. We're not anticipating anything necessarily, but if the event is successful, we could anticipate some. That being the case, this event's happening in June, so it would be happening this fiscal year. That's this current fiscal year. That's assuming we don't have one next fiscal year, which we may. So if this one's successful, for sure. But yeah, if we want to put a number there, we can. If not, then it's simply revenue that we didn't anticipate, and that's not a bad thing.
And now, Philip, my understanding was that we get 50% of the, well, originally it was, I thought they were gonna take 40% of the sponsorship money, and then I was told 50%, and then we get the other half.
For this particular Founder's Day?
No, for June, for the night market.
I mean, for this particular night market, the contract is written for the town's costs to be recouped, and then the DDA to work out the negotiation with whatever is remaining from that with night market. But yes, that's how this particular contract was written.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
It's not what was explained.
Okay.
But, and I of course, didn't see the contract.
Okay.
So, I would say it's important for us as the board to have a little more clarity on that, or see the contract, with that stipulation in there.
Okay, sure. Yeah, I mean, we went through the contract, and I brought that to y'all, but I apologize if that provision was not made clear. We wanted to try and make sure that the barrier to entry for this event was as low as possible. I know part of our discussion was we had certain amounts of money that were dedicated to First Friday events, and we never really made any money off of the First Friday event, so making sure that we just put into this first pilot round for night market, making sure that it was successful, and so we just kind of removed the money-making aspect for the DDA out of this round as a main point. Is really just to try and free up, the success for the event as much as possible. I think for future contracts, we'll certainly be able to kind of dial that in, which is what I think we're trying to go for, but I apologize if that wasn't clearly explained.
Yeah, it's, to me, it is important to get money for the DDA, even on the first event. Tracy and I discussed about handling the sponsorships in-house and keeping all the money versus letting the experts do it and keeping half on the first go-round.
Sure.
And, getting half of the sponsorship money seemed okay to kind of learn the ropes, so that, that's kind of how we led into all this was, based on the notion that we would get half the money back. So, I mean, I think that's a pretty big deal.
Okay.
Whether it's this fiscal year or next, I think it's for an example, I told the marketing lady, hey, I'm willing to pay more for this event than I normally would because I know the DDA is going to get half the money back. So it affected my financial decision for being presenting sponsor, or at least the dollar amount I paid.
Okay, we'll take a look, because there is money that comes to the DDA as a part of this event. I don't know if it was 100%, I don't know if, so vendor fees go to night market, some of the sponsorship money would come to the DDA.
Once all costs have been covered, right?
Yes, but there is a provision in there. I do remember there's a provision about costs being covered for the town specifically, because the town is fronting some costs for police and, public works and things like that.
Sure.
So those costs get covered first, and then that money comes to the DDA. I don't know if it's a particular I don't remember a particular percentage, but it is sponsorship money that does end up coming to the DDA.
And I mean, I drafted the agreement unless things have changed, and it's been a minute, but as I recall, vendor fees and those sort of funds go straight to night market, and sponsorships come to the DDA. I mean, the cost coverage is a different animal, but that's what I recall. And again, I'm not looking at it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I
Or
recall.
50/50, yeah.
I'm not even sure it was 50/50.
I don't think it was a 50.
I think it was 100% of sponsorship came to the DDA.
Okay.
And 100% of the vendor fees went to night market. But again, I mean, it's been a minute since I drafted that.
Yeah.
I think it was that, but it was minus any
Right.
cost.
Because when I spoke with Octavia on the phone, I was under the impression that we kept 60, they kept 40, and I asked her about that. She said, no, I think our fee is as low as 50% of the sponsorship money. That's what Octavia told me.
It is kind of minus costs, which are a
Right.
little bit unknown.
Right.
So, and there's some of that, the cost is gonna go to the town, so whatever is left over, it wasn't a strict percentage of exactly we would get. It's basically sponsorship money does come to the DDA, but after certain line
I
item
think the
subtractions.
percentage where that's getting, the way that I recall it is, the actual, what Octavia gets is a specific percentage.
Yeah, she does get a
She
percentage.
gets a very specific percentage, and then the rest of it goes to cover cost, and then,
All right.
but the actual percentage we would get is not exactly that 60.
It'll be important for us to get through this first event to make sure that we really understand through and through all of the numbers. That way we can kind of tweak and refine the contract for our next round as well, so that we can better anticipate, you know, maybe there are percentages that go in there. Yeah. So in terms of contributions and donations, we can put money in there, but I'm not entirely sure what that amount would be. I feel a little bit more comfortable putting in a low number or no number in that position, just because I don't know what those contributions are gonna end up being off the top of my head. In terms of that, Sandy, I don't know if you have any, if we put 0 in there, and then at the end of the fiscal year, let's just say we got a significant amount of money, let's just say we got $20,000 in contributions, would that be something that we want to pursue a budget amendment to rectify?
We could if you want to spend.
If we,
needed the money,
yeah,
you know, you don't touch it.
that's,
Spend part of it.
so that's a good point, is if we make that money, are we really gonna tap into all that money that year? I doubt that's gonna happen. So I would feel comfortable leaving that at a blank number and it getting filled in. Rents and royalties, so this particular line item here, it's actually 3 different revenue sources share this line item. Rents, royalties, property sales, and then funds carried forward. Rents and royalties is interesting. Property sales, we have the piece of property, the Clark property, that the DDA has, or that the town has transferred to us. The sale of that property would be something that likely happens this next fiscal year. But there has been discussion of possibility of that being a land lease. I'm not sure what the reality is of that. It seems more likely that it would be some sort of property sale with conditions, deed restrictions, something like a development agreement of some sort. That being the case, I've left rents and royalties null. And then property sales, I've put in there $250,000, which is a low number. The property was sold, or the
Bought it for
property,
$340,
yeah,
right?
the town bought it for $340. And it has since, I'm sure, increased in value. We haven't gotten an appraisal on that property. We probably should immediately get an appraisal on the property as soon as we accept the resolution next week. But I put a low number in there only because the negotiation of the development agreement with that property, if we go forward, is gonna, the leverage that we would have there is on the sale price of the property. So we probably would not get the full absolute, market value of the property if what we're trying to work out of that arrangement is a development agreement with certain conditions put in place. So I put a low number, again, would be, it's always better to get more revenue than less, but I just put a just whole kind of, $250,000 in there, just as the number to position ourselves there. Because I doubt we would take less than that in any circumstance, I'm not sure. But that's what that line item is, and that would be a new line item for this fiscal year budget. Any questions or thoughts on all of that? Funds carried forward this year would be what we have in the bank, which is, as of this point, this number will change as soon as, we reconcile all funds, but $95,590. So that's what we have in the bank that would get transferred over.
That number is without the 30 from this year?
That's with the 30 for this year.
With the 30?
With the
Okay,
30, yeah.
gotcha.
Yep. All right. Any more questions on revenue before we get into expenses? Legal services, I did put in a potential increase, and again, that's associated with any reviews that we do with development agreements. Anything like that, Ally would have to review. There's a potential that that goes above kind of like the minimum container that we kind of have set, so to speak. And so I did put some increase there. Special program services, I did reduce. So this is really all of our events. So $8,000 is what we had budgeted last year. I brought that down to $6,000, mostly because the largest expense that one of the largest expenses that we ever had for our events was the rental of a stage and equipment. We're not gonna have that expense. And depending on how frequently we do events, that may not be something that's certainly not gonna be something that's part of the equation. So a reduction there. And it's important that we had a reduction there because there's some costs that really went up, and I'll get to those. Rental of equipment and vehicles, $3,000, I left that the same, that's for events. Public official liability insurance. We budgeted $1,500 last year. So far, we've spent $3,400 on this insurance. It's not something that we really have an option to pay. I'm proposing a budget of $4,000, which is a significant increase from last year. This is, what it costs for us to be in it. So that's a large number, but that's what we anticipate for an increase going into next year. Same thing with festival insurance. So we budgeted $50 for that. That's so far $118. I've budgeted $200 for this fiscal year. General liability insurance has also gone up. That was budgeted at $300. We've so far spent $800, and we're still not through the rest of the year. So $1,200 for general liability insurance as well. So major increases in insurance, couple $1,000. So all that savings that we would have had coming from reduced, events is going right back into paying for insurance. Event supplies, special program supplies is that line item here. I've proposed keeping that number the same, only because I know there's been a lot of discussion about us having some branding items and branding discussions, so that's what's going on there. Also, coming under special program services, this is kind of like technical services, is what we're gonna be paying for. So she would be coming out of that line item.
Back to education and training and travel.
Yes.
I know we're required to have so many hours of education to sit on this board. Do we know who needs to do that this year, or is it every other year? I forget what it is. So many hours we have to do per year.
Yes, there's so many hours that we have to do per year. It's an every other year type of thing. What I'm proposing to do there to try and reduce cost is get online items for y'all so that you can come in, get those hours as opposed to traveling. Because the as great as the conferences are that are put on and the different kinds of trainings, Georgia Tech puts them on. The Georgia Downtown Association is really great. That's through the University of Georgia. They're usually in, well, Georgia Tech's in Atlanta, which is not that bad, but the Georgia Downtown Association is usually in some far-flung locations. They're usually in smaller Georgia downtowns or, not Atlanta downtowns. So as a result of that, there's travel associated with that, which really kind of blows the budget. Plus, the registration for those is very high. They still, UGA through the Carl Vinson Institute, they still offer online classes. And I think what we'll try and do is have that available, online classes, and then have individuals, like multiple individuals present while we do an online class, try and keep that up. But just a little bit of extra travel money budget, because if we decide that there's something that's worth going to, it's a short distance, and we can partially comp some of the travel, then we'd leave a little bit of money in there to partially cover that travel. Same thing with education and training, to cover or partially cover, depending on how many people we need to do that.
Philip, I have a question on the travel. What have I see that we budgeted 500, we spent 636 so far with a deficit. What travel have we had to spend money on?
So that was actually, yeah, Tracy came on board this year, and so we needed to get him through everything, all of his training, all of that. And,
okay.
Yeah, a certification is what he went to at Georgia Tech.
Okay.
So, and we comped some of that stay for that.
I paid for.
Yeah, so that's what we've
I
got
didn't know
there.
about that, so.
Office supplies, $200. We've really never spent anything, but this would just be a buffer for us to purchase anything that we might need there. Postage, we've, again, not had anything, but it's good to have a little bit of a budget in case we want to do. All of these other, water and electricity was associated with the building. Those are no longer active, so.
Firehouse?
That was the firehouse,
Oh,
so
okay.
we don't have a water or electricity bill any longer. And then signage, this is something that I think will probably, as we get into a regular schedule of events, we will continue to spend this money in signage. Last year, we did not spend a whole lot of that money, but next fiscal year, when we do events and we have to do print banners or signs or things like that for those events, then that money is available for that. Other supplies is just, miscellaneous items that we'll keep that. And then for sites and site improvements, I do have $3,000 dedicated to sites. This money, this $3,000, is for us retaining any professional services that we might need. So if we need a surveyor, if we need the assessment and appraisal of the property, things like that, that will come out of that for the Clark property. Same thing for site improvements. If there's some minor improvements that we need to make on the property, we have a little bit of money for that, prior to a sale or any testing, soil testing, something like that we might have to do. So there's money placed there. And then we have $1350 in contingency. What I've had all of that equal up to is $30,000. So I've not balanced the budget with total expected revenues. I've balanced it only with what we know absolutely that we get every year, which is from the town. Sandy's gonna check with me to see if we have to reconcile the entire budget. So that contingency number, if that's the case, just like the town has to do that. But the DDA it operates as a different type of fund. So if we have to force reconcile with all of our expected revenue, that contingency number would just simply be all of our revenue minus expenses, and then that would be what the contingency number is. So it could be a really huge number. It could be, a couple $100,000 number, especially with the projected land sale. But right now, I just wanted to show you that this number syncs up with the absolute known 100%, revenue that we get, which is the $30,000 from the town.
Philip, I have two questions, please.
Yes, sir.
On the signs, it made me think about Shamrock Park. Does the town have any plans to put any type of sign at the park, a digital sign, a regular sign, anything like that, that,
Yeah, we
in the
do. We
future?
actually had some, as part of our downtown, or our LCI that we did downtown.
Yeah.
We got new signage designs for all town properties,
Okay.
including the park. So a new upgraded larger sign is anticipated. Not right now, it's not a digital sign. We would probably keep the town sign as the digital sign and maybe upgrade that one. That would be a town project. But yes, we do have that planned. That would occur after we redo all of the Shamrock Park Phase 2 improvements. So when we shift the parking lot, do all the landscaping, the path, all of that would be a part of that project.
okay, thank you. The second question I have is about the budget for sites. You know, we talked about surveys and appraisals and things like that. Is there anything in this year's budget that would keep us from doing an appraisal in June?
No,
Okay, 'cause, I mean, if we did, I mean, it's gonna come out of the money carried forward instead of out of next year's budget. It's a net
that's correct.
same thing, but, you know,
Yeah, we can absolutely, if y'all, at this meeting or next week's meeting, if you wanna make a motion to work, to get an appraisal
Yeah.
done, try and get it done before the end of the fiscal year, sometime in June, then we can absolutely do that.
and I think, and one more point, so if we do a private appraisal, say the buyer is having to borrow any money whatsoever, which I doubt it, but if they're having to borrow any money, that lender is gonna require their own appraisal. We can't just hand them ours.
I think that's probably accurate, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've done it a few times and, you know, go to the bank, like, here's my appraisal, oh, no, we gotta do our own. And they, even if it was 30 days old, they didn't care, so, just a thought.
Well, I think it might be important for us to do one anyway, just so we have it, understand the value is, and then if they do their own, then we have at least.
And it's not a big line item anyway, you're talking about a property appraisal.
Right.
Might be 500 or less.
Yeah.
They're not having to do comps on the square footage of a home and.
And there have been recent appraisals done on this property. It's not like an appraisal hasn't been done for a decade. There have
Right.
been multiple appraisals done over the past, 5 years, 3 years. So the numbers are, that exist are not wildly off
Right.
base right now.
Okay, we'll talk about that next week then.
It's zoned mixed use, town center mixed use. And there was an appraisal done after the rezoning as well. So, by the owners.
Awesome. Any other questions for Philip? On the legal services, I know you went up 1,000. Considering some of the things that are foreseen, should we maybe swap that, maybe go up to 4 on legal?
I can take that out of contingency as well. I can go up to 4 there and then subtract $500 from contingency.
Anything else for Philip on the budget? You'll have this prepared for us for next week to adopt?
Yes, I'll have a final version of this ready for next week. We'll also have 2 resolutions. We'll have one to participate in Georgia Fund 1, one to accept the property from the town. Those are so far the only 3 agenda items that I have.
Tracy, how close are we on that property transfer or lease contract?
We haven't started.
So should we go ahead and appraisal now? Have it appraised?
We don't have the property yet, so I don't.
Well, we do, the property has been transferred to you. You just have to accept, you'll just vote to approve a resolution to accept it at next
We
meeting.
can start right now with the.
I think they could go forward with an
I can
appraisal.
order an appraisal.
I'll make a motion to approve,
Appraisal on the Clark property.
appraisal on the Clark property.
Other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay. I don't have any other questions on the budget. All right. Philip, and you flip to the,
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, yeah, that was the last item.
I think there was some other.
Public.
Well, on what we got last night, there was other stuff, but on this, I didn't.
Yeah, so there's no new business, public comments, anybody public? Staff comments? Board?
Hey.
My only staff comment is, thank you, Jenny, I saw you brought something back there.
Yeah,
I don't
you
know
did.
what it is, but thank you very much.
Oh, you're.
There's no need for an executive session today. And with that, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you guys very much.
Oh, lemon muffins in the back.
Thank you.
I will
Jenny.
definitely take one of those.
Always some special muffins.
It's a season of